All right, guys, we're here with Rebecca Fisher, who has been writing for 17 years. She writes mainly fantasy and sci-fi in the new adult and young adult categories, age categories. Rebecca, you want to say anything about yourself real quick before we get started?
Yeah, so I have in my life I've technically written three book length things. I think only one of them is anywhere close to being suitable for publication because that is the life of a writer when you start out at 10, the thing you work on when you're 10, and from 10 to maybe even 23 is not the thing that you first send to editors. I have three short stories that are currently out and published. One I have self-published on Wattpad. It's under R.K. Fisher 93. The other two are in anthologies. I actually have one of the anthologies here. The Monster We Forgot, Volume 2 by Soteria Press. My book, or my short story, The Basement, is in here. It is a story about a ghost. And then the other one is also by the same publisher. That one is called What Monsters Do for Love. And the short story that I have in that is called Canary. And it is about a very, very, very screwed up teenage boy taking vengeance on his girlfriend who wasn't really doing anything other than being a teenage girl. So
That's awesome. Like, it looks like you have like a lot of different crazy ideas.
yeah.
I love it when you describe a book and it's something that's so wild and out there that you're like, how did you make that into a story? Is this really going to work? And then it always does. It's
yeah.
I love that. And
Definitely.
I also like how you wrote from like kind of the villain's perspective.
Yeah, it's a headspace. So I wrote that one. That one actually got published in March of this year. And in fact, well, it was supposed to be published in February of this year, and then it got pushed back to March because of what happened earlier this year and what we're still dealing with and all of these things. And I will say that as me right now, I don't think I can get into that kind of headspace anytime soon, just because of how, I mean, like, Trump was still president when I was writing that short story. So obviously there were some really dark, bad things happening. And my books have always been a response to that. All of my stories have always been a response to, like, why the fuck do people suck so much? Like, what? And like, especially in the Trump era, it's been like, what is happening here? But I do not think that I can get into that. I mean, because he takes this girl into a mine with the intent of tying her up and leaving her there and letting her die from the poisonous gas. Like, it's really, really, really dark.
I want to read that. I like dark things.
Yeah.
So
and I loved writing it. It was really, really fun. But like, just where I'm at right now and the things that have happened and what we're dealing with in the world, like, I don't think I can get into that headspace anytime soon. You
want
like,
something a little lighter and more upbeat, something that's kind of like a reprieve.
The book I'm writing right now is a reaction to my watching these caravans of immigrants and refugees coming to the US-Mexican border in 2017, going, oh my God, 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 because we knew what he was going to do. And then he did it. Yeah. And like, it's just, everything I see is definitely a response to, but I'm doing it from the perspective of a kind of goofy, means well, but is sort of learning what it means to actually be a person in the world. Very gay, young pirate.
So gay pirates. Yes, I love it.
Flying around in 18th century ships in space. Like, this is a very different kind of story that I had to write during this, talking about these dark things, but in a way that didn't make me actually want to jump off a cliff.
I gotcha.
It's a lot right now. There's a lot going on right now. And as far as creatives go, like, it's totally, like, I will just put it out there right now. Writers, if you had to stop working on what you were working on before this, because this is going on, I feel ya. I feel ya. And I don't know if your book is dead. I don't think it's dead, but you are totally allowed to just let it sit for a minute.
For a second and then come back to it when things aren't quite so dark, and it'll be a change of scenery.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, let's go ahead and get into the first question real quick. I just want to know what got you started writing in the first place? What was it that sparked your interest in this and started your path?
Yeah, so there's the magical story. It starts with Harry Potter.
Of course.
Unfortunately, J.K. Rowling has proven to be a sucky person.
Unfortunately.
However, I do believe that those books outgrew her. Like the second Sorcerer's Stone got published, especially in the US. So I believe, like, yes, there's a lot of problematic things in those books as they stand when they were being, and that's because they were written. I mean, the first one was written in 1997. We've come a long way since then. Even though it wasn't all that long ago, we're still, but it started with Harry Potter. When I was 6 years old, my baby brother was 2, and I had been gotten very used very quickly to being an only child. And then when they had my brother, they started to notice that I was kind of acting up, like in preschool and stuff. Like I was like stealing things, like obviously nothing significant, Lego pieces and stuff like that. But like for a 6-year-old, it's like alarming. Yeah, it's like alarming, like attention driving behavior. So my mom, who was a children's librarian at the time, checked out, and there were no fantasy books. Like my mom had to scour to look for books on unicorns and dragons and princesses because that's what I wanted to read. And there just wasn't any yet. You have Harry Potter to thank for that. And she brought home Sorcerer's Stone and started reading it as a bedtime story. And so that, I played Harry Potter games with my friends, and I did potions, and I was like, so like my imagination was always there. And then more books started to come out when a freak success that was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and then Chamber of Secrets, Azkaban, and go on. I was devouring those. And then at 10, I wrote a story. So are you familiar with Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal at all? Do you know of that movie? Do you know?
I saw The Dark Crystal on Netflix, and that's as much as I know about it.
So it's really good. It's really, really good. I highly recommend that you check out both the original 1982 movie and the series that Netflix did. Unfortunately, the series got canceled, but I think it's going to continue on in like graphic novel and novel form, which is pretty cool. Crossing mediums is a good thing. Definitely do that as an artist. But I wrote because it has like this dark, spooky narration. And so in the tone of that narration, as a 10-year-old in a little pink notebook, I wrote a story about these two races. I believe one was a unicorn and one was like a Pegasus race. And they were going after this like magical jewel, which is what the Dark Crystal, it's in the name, is about. So, and then I wrote that and I handed it to my 4th grade teacher who loved me. And it was, 14 pages in my great big 10-year-old handwriting in this teeny tiny little pink notebook. And she loved it. And then that was actually the only thing my mother has ever read of mine, because I was a 10-year-old and it was cute. And my mom actually photocopied it, and it somehow ended up in the display case in the cafeteria of what would later become my high school.
Oh, wow.
She made photocopies of the little book and then typed up the words, because I was 10 and I wrote a whole short story as a 10-year-old. Like, that's not something that 10-year-olds usually do. Like, it had a solid beginning, middle, and it had a plot. Like, I mean, it was about unicorn and Pegasus as in the tone of the Dark Crystal, but I was 10. So that, and because I received such positive, like, I really think positive reinforcement of those kind of things as children is something that we miss a lot of times. It's why a lot of people, if they start writing really, really young, they'll often stop and then maybe pick it up again later as an adult when they like are either less affected by negativity or don't care about it as much or aren't around it as much, or have learned to maybe feed off of it and go, you know what, if you don't think I can do this, I'm going to prove you wrong. But I always had like really, really positive reinforcement. So that was number 1. And then at 13, I started writing a fairy book because that was popular. Holly Black's Tithe books had just come out. Melissa Marr's Wicked Lovely books had just come out, alongside the Twilight books, by the way, which I was very against. I was like unicorns. I'm going to go hang out with the fairies. Oh, yeah. No,
I liked Twilight when it first came out, and then I realized that it was problematic. I was like, wait.
Yeah. It's definitely an evolution, like depending. I mean, everybody did. Those books were enormous. Right. But I was a teen librarian for a couple of years, and I can tell you right now that I can think of one time in the past 5 years where I had a teenager asking for the Twilight books. Like, those books have, considering what a huge freak success they were, they have like